Hello doll friends, this is Michael Canadas with the Grovian Doll Museum in Pacific Grove, California. Today we have a very special program for you. On my way here today, I stopped and looked at a sign. We're in the Monterey Peninsula and we were founded in 1790. Today we're going to share with you a house that was created, furnished, with furnishings and dolls in the year 1790. I know that a lot of jargon with advertisement today is museum quality. Each museum has their own definition of that. For me, the concept of museum quality is something that's rarity, condition, and quality. And of course, historic importance. This right now we feel is our most historic structure that we have. Very few museums in the world anywhere have dollhouses with the original furnishings. And then when you have a dollhouse that's furnished with 18th century furniture and then French 18th century furniture, this is something that's unbelievable. I'm not going to go into the French Revolution because that could be 2.5 hours, although I think it could be interesting. This is a survivor of the Revolution. Many people don't realize that anything that had a slight royal connection in the late 18th century, early 19th century, were destroyed. It could be considered a piece of propaganda. Somehow, this masterpiece survived. So, I want to talk about the architectural details. This is classic Louis XVI. Louis says 1790. We know it's 1790 because it's dated all over the place. So we have the neoclassic architecture. And by the way, Marie Antoinette was already working on what would become the empire style towards the end of her reign. So we have a lot of these neoclassic details. This would be in the 19th century, early 19th century, all the rage. But then we still have the classic Louis XVI style here. And then if you come over here and look at this, we have the classic chinoiserie style, which was really popular throughout the whole 18th century. One thing that I love about French architecture is that they understood the beauty of symmetry, which is very important to myself and David. We love symmetry. So we're going to go and look in the windows, which is one of my favorite things to do. So we're going to look in the windows. And we're going to see all this wonderfulness. And also I want to point out to you, look at, this is handmade. So this brick is in a little small pattern. It's to scale to the dolls. We know that something was removed here because we've got some nail holes. Beautiful original paint, original glass. The house is made of wood and cardboard and paper. All those things together. So, it's very interesting how it opens. Remember, if you were in France in 1790, you were isolated from the doll scene. There weren't doll magazines, there wasn't the internet. You use your own creativity. So this is a very unique house. It has a glass roof so that you can look in. It does not open in the front. Normally, I should tell you that we prefer houses that open in the front. But when you have an opportunity to have a piece like this, you take it however it works. But we're going to take you in a little tour of the interior. But first, I have to take the roof off. So I'm going to take the roof off, and voila. And I'm going to put it over here so we don't forget where it is and trample on it. There are very few interiors from 1790 surviving with the furniture, decorative arts, draperies, but we've got one right here. So we're going to go into the house and we're going to look through the roof and see what's happening in here. So, one thing that I think is very poignant, so much of the revolution was based on bread. A lack of bread, a lack of food sources. But if you look right here, this little covered tureen, this is made off of bread dough. So that it survived 200 plus years is a miracle. Now I've got to straighten that up a little bit. Everything you see in the rooms are original to the house. There are things missing, but there's been nothing added since the time. So I mentioned earlier, this is classical style, Louis XVI, but you can start to see the empire coming in with the mythological pieces. A blue that was very popular in the 18th century. Fabulous Trumeau mirror. And this is all done with paper. It looks like Dresden paper, but this is not Dresden paper. This is all hand-worked paper. So this was all done with cutting. They would use like the equivalent to a razor blade to create this. This is printed and then all hand painted. And it's just an amazing, amazing room. And if you come over here, you can see the mix of styles. That here we have cut work in a chinoiserie style, which is amazing. These are the original draperies. Today we have tools to create this pinking, but in the 18th century that was done with a mallet and a die cut. So it's pretty amazing that they've survived. And then we have more of the artwork on the walls. That again is all cut work, all hand done. And then they have a little bit of commercially made paper as the frames. Now I'm going to take some items out of the house to show to you. I have washed my hands carefully. I don't take this lightly. I'm not going to use gloves because these pieces are so light that if you don't have the feelings in your hands, you could easily drop them. So I'm going to take some pieces out and show you. So here's the little canopy, which is just extraordinary. All original upholstery. In 1790s, Marie Antoinette had given up her very fancy lifestyle and went to a more comfortable period. So furniture reflected that. But here you have, so this would be even today very, very comfortable to sit in. It's all constructed out of carton, also known to us as cardboard, and little wooden components. And beautifully done, all handmade. This is as light as a feather. That this survived is really an incredible miracle. So that's one piece. And then we have the matching chairs. Again, all in original condition. That it survived with the original upholstery is a miracle. Now, the way the furniture is arranged in the house, we're used to seeing Victorian doll houses, which have a lot of bric-a-brac, a lot of decoration. In the 18th century, you didn't have that much decoration. You had very, very few pieces of furniture, and they were almost always pushed off to the walls. And then if you had a card game, you'd bring them out into the center of the room because the dresses were so large. So here's the other piece that is really removable. And again, in a way, the things have become rustic over the last 200 years, but when they were new, I'm sure this was all bright and fine. And this is a classic little side server piece. And they did even the furniture tops, they used paper and they painted it to look like wood. So it's really an amazing piece. And then look at the detail in the lower legs. They're just classic Louis XVI. And again, the trim is a cut work trim, embossed, cut. Very lovely. And we have in the house 4 dolls. I have figured that 2 of them are young ladies and girls, maybe 16, 17 years old. And then we have the mother and the father. And here's the father, and he's connected to his chair, which is actually yellow, which means that it really goes in that room, but it works here perfectly. The dolls are made of composition, paper mache, if you like, with wooden bodies. And these poor people, they don't know that the world that they're enjoying is soon to end. But they've stayed untouched by time. So here we have another lady. She's supposed to be in this room because if you see, she's got the blue chair. And I believe that this is the mother. She's missing her hat. You can see that there were nails to hold the hat on. 1790, the famous styles of Marie Antoinette with the huge dresses, they're gone. We're now doing a more naturalistic style. Actually, they're called chemise dresses, very comfortable. It wouldn't have been much gathering at the waist. It would have been the ribbon that would hold it closed. But this is just so perfectly styled that's unbelievable. Now, I have not ever seen these little dolls before. This is the first time I've seen them, and there's 4 of them. They're slightly similar to a creche figure, but not quite. So we're going to go there. And then we have to use our imagination that the house was probably much bigger because we have the bell calls. There's 2 of them to call for servants, except there's no servants' quarters or any servants. But this is an amazing room with beautiful things. And we should now go to the day room with a day bed. Now, I can't take the bed out because it's affixed to the walls. But here we have more of the chinoiserie work, all hand cut. And then there, do you see, oh, do you see that? Yeah. And then there's also one piece of original art that is steel cut over here, right here. And I'll go here. Samantha and I are going around the table because we can't both be at the same place at the same time. This is very similar. The steel cut work is similar to what would be on buckles of shoes at the time. One thing I think is really beautiful are the flowers, the handmade flowers that are on the mantelpiece. And those are exceptional, exceptional. And then look at this work on the door. They don't move, but you can see they've simulated hardware right in here. Simulated hardware. And all of the woodwork is faux bois. It's all hand-painted wood, paper to look like wood. And of course you have more chinoiserie pieces here, but you can see that you can mix Louis XVI style and neoclassic and chinoiserie all together. And this one doll really captures the era perfectly. When this was new, this was bright white, and the Queen caused quite a scandal when she was painted wearing a muslin dress similar to this, holding a rose. Just a fabulous little piece. I'm very tempted to recreate a hat for the mother that's missing a hat, but this is a piece that's an item that we're not going to do anything to add or subtract. It's going to be just as it is. And the figures don't have legs. And we can see with the glue marks, we can match them up where they need to go in the dollhouse. So it's a wonderful piece. Now we have one lady in a young lady in a gauze dress that I'm not going to take out because her dress is very fragile and I want to leave it just as it is. Now, most of the furniture pieces were glued in, but over the last 200 years, glue dries up and pieces come loose, and this one did come loose. This is so gorgeous, and this is basically made out of cardboard. So someone with great devotion that wanted to make a beautiful piece of furniture sat down with some cardboard and created this. And what's really, really special is on the back, it's dated, who made it, the family that owned it, etc. So it's really, really pretty. And this, I think, is very interesting how they simulated a marble top. Is they used a piece of glass and they cut it, and you can see it's very hard to cut glass this thin into shapes. It's just hard to cut glass, period. But they've cut it into shape with these little edges which would have held candlesticks. And then they have glued a piece of paper on the upside that has been marbleized. So it's very, very clever. Remember, they didn't have Best Pack or online to buy things. If you wanted to create this room, you had to do it yourself. All the floors, I should point out to you, it looks like they're parquet floors, which is a classic Louis XVI style of flooring, and it's all done on paper. So this house is very ephemeral. It actually shouldn't have survived, but it's here. Now, one of the things that I think is really special about this house that, I should show you this before I talk about that. Look at this little music stand. So it's filled with music, tiny. This is the size of a postage stamp. And this is all original music. Now we believe that there must have been at one time a harpsichord in the house, and it is long gone. How we can figure out what was there is because everything was glued to the floor. So where we have scars, we figure that there must have been some item there. But it's mostly all here, but we are missing a harpsichord because we have this original music. Oops. And at some point that I have to figure out exactly where it goes. And then we have another piece of original music. And so someone has created that. This is not printed. This is all hand done. And again, it's the size of, this would be the size of like a Christmas stamp today. But with modern technology and people with talent, such as Barbara Porter and Company and Samantha Lewis, who's filming it, we are now able to play this original composition, which hasn't been played since 1790. So here it goes. Remember, in 1790, you composed your music and the player embellished it. So it needed, if we were going to play it properly in 1790, of course, we'd need a harpsichord, which we don't have, and we would also add a little bit of pizzazz to it. So here we go. amazing. I know of no other house except for perhaps Queen Mary's Dollhouse. Oops, oops, oops. Okay. I know of no other, it plays itself. I know of no other house except for Queen Mary's Dollhouse that has its own original music or original anything, such as books, etc. Earlier I said that we wouldn't add anything to the house or subtract anything to the house, but we are going to add something to the house. A few years ago we had an event here, the Lady in the Rose, Marie Antoinette tea, and one of our regular attendees, who is a flower rose collector, you know, just like we have doll organizations, people that grow roses, they have their organizations. And she gave us a very precious gift that day, which was a tiny little vial of perfume. And in that vial of perfume was the formula for Marie Antoinette's perfume. So what we're going to add to the house is we're going to take that little vial of perfume and we're going to pour it into the flower pots, so that if you come and visit us, I will lift the lid, and not only will you see Marie Antoinette's world, you can hear Marie Antoinette's world, you could also smell it. So, bye-bye friends, we'll see you a little later.